Okay, I think we'll make a start. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on understanding the Disabled Students Allowance, commonly known as the DSA. We are very lucky today to have the combined effort from Charmaine Valente and Kevin McCullen from the Student Loans Company, who will be leading this webinar. My name is Joni Trace and I work for the Kenton Medway Progression Federation, also known as KMPF. Before we go any further or get into the webinar itself, I just wanted to go through a few bits of housekeeping. Firstly, just to confirm that as audience members, you are muted with webcams switched off. I'm sure you've all got used to working virtually by now, but just to confirm that this means we can't hear or see you. However, you can communicate with us if you would like to. Hopefully most of you are familiar with Teams. There's normally a chat box, but on this live event, there is a Q&A box. Should you have any questions, please click on the Q&A box and put your questions in there. We have deliberately left time at the end for Kevin to answer any questions that you may have. Before I go on, I'd also like to just say a huge thank you to Kat Jameson from CXK for hosting this webinar. Kat and I have been working together for over a year now, and this webinar forms part of a series that has been organised and delivered as part of the SEND Progression Partnership, known as PP for short. The SEND PP is a group of professionals and students from across Kenton Medway working together to improve the post-16 and 18 opportunities for disabled students, with a particular focus on enabling transition to higher education. One of the SEND PP's key priorities is to share information about the opportunities available, and this webinar is part of the 2021 series. Just to also say that this webinar will be recorded and made publicly available for you to watch again. Okay, so this webinar is actually going to be split into two sections. The first is a pre-recorded session from Charmaine Valente, all about the DSA. Charmaine is the Funding Information Partners Account Manager for the Student Loans Company. Unfortunately, although she can't be with us virtually today, she's very kindly pre-recorded the content to share with you all. For the second section, we will be joined by Kevin McCullen, who will answer any questions that you may have. So I'm sure you'll be pleased for me to now say that's enough from me. And I would like to now ask Kat to please let's get started with the webinar.
Hello, and welcome to Student Finance England's presentation on behalf of UniConnect, Kenton Medway Progression Federation on Disabled Students Allowance. This session will outline the entitlement of Disability Students Allowance, explain how to apply and the provision of funding. Finally, you'll be able to be signposted to where you can find further information and guidance. I will refer to Disability Students Allowance as DSA throughout this presentation. We'll start with what is DSA, Disabled Students Allowance. Well, you can find more details by going to the Gov.uk site for Disabled Students Allowance, DSA. DSA online applications were introduced in 2017-18, allowing full-time students to apply online as part of their application for fees and maintenance. Unlike your maintenance loans, DSA does not depend upon your household income, but it's based upon your disability and what you might need to enable you to be on the same playing field as others on your course. What support you'll need in place will be determined at your assessment, which I'll discuss in later slides. A recurring question we receive from students and stakeholders is which students need to apply each year for DSA. So students who do need to reapply each year for their DSA are those ones who don't apply for tuition fees and maintenance support. They only apply for DSA. Now, the reason for this is because we need the university to stamp and sign the relevant sections of the application form to confirm they're in attendance and on the course still. This slide actually provides you with examples of the types of support that are available. So, for instance, specialist equipment, pens, taxis, for instance, for students who are unwell and can't travel, and non-medical helpers. Some people are unaware that they may be entitled to apply for DSA. This slide gives you an idea of the categories we support. For example, if you're living with stress and anxiety and can provide evidence to support this, then you should apply. In this next section, I'll explain how and when to apply. You can find out more details on the Gov.uk site under Disabled Students Allowance. The Student Finance application for funding for academic year 2021, this September, opened on the 1st of March. When you apply for your tuition fee and maintenance, one of the questions on your applications is, do you have a disability? If you answer yes to this question, then you'll be instructed to open another application after submitting your student finance application. Please apply now for your student finance, as you don't need to have a confirmed place to submit your application. Just add in your preferred choice of university, as this can easily be amended nearer the time. Please note that you will need to reapply for your tuition fee and maintenance loans year by year, but you won't need to reapply for your disability if it does not need reviewing. When you start your application for your tuition fees and maintenance, you will need to have an in-date British passport, as you'll need to enter the details of that passport onto the application. Please note you do not need to send this passport in to us if it's valid and accepted. If you don't have an in-date passport, then you will be required to post us your original birth certificate. Make sure that you put the customer reference number on the certificate so we can ensure that we align it with your application. If you do not have a British national passport, you will need to send us other evidence, such as a biometric card or original birth certificates. We also need to have your national insurance number. If you don't have one, you can still submit your application, but you will need to provide us with this to ensure that we can pay you when the time comes. You'll also need to have a British bank account for us to pay in your student loan. Again, if you don't have one right now, you can apply to student finance without that and give us the details before you start your actual course. Once you've completed your student finance application, you'll be directed to the DSA online application for you to complete. In the next few slides, we're going to discuss your DSA application. This is a very short application and really asks only 3 main questions. As you can see from this slide, there is information as to where you can go to get an online application to go through your DSA form. You can also do this on paper should you be unable to do it online. On your DSA application, you will be asked to consent to share with your university and assessment centre. Please tick these, as this will speed up your application and ensure you receive the recommended equipment and services on time for the start of your course. You'll need to submit medical evidence to support your DSA application. Evidence is required in the form of a diagnostic report, letter from a medical professional, or if you haven't got any of these or you're unsure, then complete a student finance disability evidence form. With your DSA application, it's good to note that you don't actually require original documents, and our forms and guides remind you of this by referring to copies. This allows us to be able to accept medical evidence as scanned images or photographs via email or uploading on your actual portal. Once our DSA department have reviewed your information and agreed that you are eligible to receive DSA, you'll receive a letter advising you of how to book an appointment for an assessment centre. As I mentioned earlier, you'll get a letter from the Student Loans Company Disability Department to inform you that you will need to make an appointment at an assessment centre. As we're working in conjunction with UniConnect in Kent at the present moment, they work quite closely with Iona, who's the local assessment centre in Kent. Iona are actually doing a session next week to talk to you about what a needs assessment will look like and what you'll need to bring in. So please look out for that. As you can see from this slide, it takes approximately 22 days for a student to attend their study needs assessment. So the sooner you can get your needs assessment booked and you attend it, the sooner we can receive the information and ensure that the support you need can be put in place prior to you starting your university. You will receive a confirmation letter from us showing what we'll be paying for. Your assessment centre, like Iona, will ensure that all the agreed support is in place for you. The suppliers of any equipment will invoice our DSA department and we'll make the payments directly to them. As a part of your assessment, you may need a laptop. Please note that you are liable for the first £200 of the cost of the laptop. You may wish to check with your university to see if they can help towards a contribution of that £200. Any general allowances that you might need to claim back, you can use as long as you've got receipts, and we will pay those back to you directly. Finally, just a few points. Students should stay vigilant. When you receive your loan, there are going to be many scammers out there who'd like to get their hands on your money. So check out our YouTube video on phishing. I've also listed a few other links for you to find out more information. And don't forget to check out your university websites and Student Services Department, all of whom can support you with your application. Wishing you all the success in the world. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Hello again, it's Joni. Before anyone thinks that's the end of the webinar, we're going to be moving into second section in a moment with Kevin, who is here to answer any questions you may have. So please put them in the Q&A box. Also, before we move on to hear from and see Kevin, I just wanted to mention, as Charmaine said in the middle of her presentation, that there are a series of webinars. The next one is next week, which is from Iona, the Assessment Centre. I'll put the link and the email in the chat here, but if you would like to know more about the assessment process and what that involves, there is a webinar all about that, so I will put that in the chat in a moment. There's also a webinar survey that we would love you to complete if you have the time. That will show you the range of webinars that we've either developed or are thinking about developing, and which ones you would find beneficial. You can also let us know if you think there are any gaps, anything else that we could support or help with, but also it'll give you a chance to sign up to our mailing list so that you hear about all further webinars and events in the future. So, okay, enough from me again now. I will put those comments in the chat, but I'm very pleased to announce that we've got Kevin with us today, Funding Information Partners Account Manager again, from the Students' Loans Company. Bear with us 2 seconds while we just get him on the screen. And I believe he should be there. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me along.
Thanks ever so much for coming along. It was a really informative presentation there from Charmaine, and she covered quite a lot of things. But I'm sure there may be questions that people in the audience have got. So again, please do pop them in the chat. There is a few that I've seen that I will ask if in case any more come through. And the first one, as someone has asked, is what if I didn't tick the box on the student finance application? So, or they've already submitted their application but didn't tick the box. Is there a way to rectify that?
Yes, there is. As Charmaine mentioned in the presentation, the easiest way to apply for disabled student allowance is using the online application system, which is great because it is only those 3 questions, but there will be people out there that don't apply for their disabled student allowance at the same time as their maintenance support and the tuition fee support, so you can apply for them separately. The slight downside is if you want to do it separately, it means completing a paper form. Now that paper form is available on the gov.uk website. if you've already applied for your tuition fee loan and your maintenance loan, we'll already have details about your course and your study and your start date and those type of things. So the actual DSA form itself is quite small. So it's actually called DSA Slimline form. So it's available on gov.uk, but absolutely it's not a once only chance. If you subsequently want to apply for your disabled student allowance, even after you've started university, I think it's worth mentioning as well. We do get a lot of students that are first time diagnosed and they apply for disabled student allowance for the first time when they realise that there may be a condition after they've started. That's the form to access the DSA Slimline form on the gov.uk website.
That's brilliant, because actually that was another question, was can I apply after starting the can I apply for DSA after starting the course if I need to? And I think you've just answered that one. Would you recommend applying in advance though?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a long-standing mantra, I suppose, of student finance is apply early, and that is because you can get your support in place nice and early before starting your university careers. That's particularly important for students that are applying for disabled student allowance. The reason for that is because we are not medical experts at student finance. We will refer students to a needs assessment centre. I think Iona was the local one mentioned there. That process can take longer. So whilst it's always important to apply for student finance early, particularly important, I think, for students with disabilities. And I think all of our literature says allow for around about 6 weeks to get an application done from start to finish. I would be working on the premise of around about 10, 11, 12 weeks for students with disabilities, certainly at certain parts of the year. So May, June, July, the assessment centres get really busy, and you might find that there's a delay. And what we want to do our best to make sure that the support's in place before you start. So absolutely, apply early is probably the main takeaway from the student support webinar itself, I think.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Kevin. Questions are really coming in now. So the next one is, I'm actually in Northern Ireland. I didn't know we could spread that far. That's fantastic. Is it a different system?
Good question. I don't deal with Northern Ireland too often either. However, I think broadly speaking, it's the same system, but the regulations may vary slightly. So I would urge that person to have a look at the Student Finance Northern Ireland website and the information for disabled student allowance. I think broadly speaking, the support will mirror between England, Wales and Northern Ireland, but there may be little nuances, little things that may be different in Northern Ireland as opposed to what there are in England. So whilst I think it's broadly the same system, I would just recommend that you clarify that directly with the student finance experts in Northern Ireland.
Great, thank you. Hopefully that does answer your query. There's another one here about, is there an age limit for DSA?
No, there isn't. DSA is unique, really, in the spectrum of student finance, because not only is there not an age limit, but also it doesn't matter if you've studied before. So when we talk about tuition fees and maintenance support, usually if you've already had some support, you've already had some funding from government, then there isn't usually another lot of funding to go if you want to study for a second time. That's not the case with DSA. So not only is there no age limit, there's also no previous study limit either. You will always be able to access disabled student allowance, regardless if you're going into university for the first, second or even third time, perhaps.
Well, I've just learned something new. For as much as I've been involved in this, I wasn't aware of that at all. So thank you very much for confirming. Someone else has said that earlier on in the webinar, it was mentioned that transport was covered by DSA. Is that daily transport to university from home covered by this, or just only occasional transport?
Yeah, transport, private transport is one of the elements that we offer support for, and that's for any student who, through reasons of disability, is not able to access public transport. So as part of the needs assessment, there would be a review done, I suppose, of your home address and the address of the university. They would calculate how many journeys in and how many journeys out to university you would need. Probably there and back 5 days a week is a reasonable assumption, and they would put a cost to that that private taxi transport. So it might come out at, you know, £1,000, £2,000 worth of taxi allowance. One thing it's worth bearing in mind is that once we've got that figure, we do deduct the cost of public transport. So the fact is everybody needs to travel to and from university, and as Charmaine mentioned in the webinar, it's a level playing field. So yeah, it will take a little bit of calculating and working out, but it will be set, and you can set up an account with a local taxi agent, so that you can run these journeys on account, so students don't need to worry about issues with cash flow and things like that. They will just sign off to say that they've had this journey into university and they've had this journey back, and then we will pay the invoice directly to the taxi company. So it's designed for study, so it is from the home address to the university in most cases. It's not available to go anywhere or nights out or things like that, unfortunately, but it is a really good system, and as I say, there are a number of people that just can't access public transport, so that's why the travel allowance is factored into that. Fantastic,
thank you. We are on to the last question at the moment, so if there are any more, please do pop them in, so that you don't miss your chance. It's a really to ask Kevin, as obviously he's got a wealth of experience. The next question is, does the amount of money vary depending on my disability, and how much could I possibly get?
Okay, yes, the amount of support that is available will vary, and it only varies based on student need, on disability. So there is no one size fits all solution. It's not a case that everybody with a particular condition will get recommended exactly the same support, because different students will be on different courses, therefore their needs will be different, and also the impact of the conditions will vary from student to student. So yes, the package of support is solely based on student need. The maximum limit that you'll see on all of our literature is any support up to £25,000 per year. Now the exclusion to that is travel. Okay, so any specialist equipment, non-medical helper support or general allowance up to a maximum of £25,000 per year, and there's also, as an aside to that, the private taxi transport as well. So yes, there is a limit, but that £25,000 is, Charmaine said, you apply for it once, and then if your needs are the same in year 2 and year 3, which they are for most of our students, that would just roll over into the next academic year.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for answering those questions. I'm just going to quickly say, in case anyone hasn't figured that already, that any question that you ask will be, unless you put it as public, will remain anonymous in this, and I'm just reading them out loud. So in case someone's thinking, oh, I don't want my name to show or anything like that, you can ask the question privately. But I think that's coming towards the end of the questions. Is there anything, Kevin, from your perspective that wasn't covered? I know Charmaine was very thorough, but is there anything that you wanted to add at all? Please don't feel under pressure to say yes. I just wanted to double check.
No, I mean, we do a lot of work looking at when students apply, and we try to learn a little bit about student behaviour, and we know that students with disability do tend to apply a little bit later, so I would just emphasise that apply early message. The support that you're recommended is recommended for a reason, and it's the benefit of having that support in place from day one will be instant to you don't want to run the risk of being recommended support that you need, but it's not in place until week 3 or week 4 of your university career, because that could make the transition a little bit harder than it needs to be. So yeah, I would just sort of emphasize the importance of an early application. And the other thing is, if you get stuck, give us a ring. You know, we are there to help, and we can push applications in the right direction should things go awry. Don't suffer in silence. If you are looking out for letters, the DSA 1 is confirming that you're eligible for DSA. DSA 2 confirms exactly what you're going to get. So keep an eye out for those letters on your online account. But certainly, if you haven't seen your DSA 2 by the latest first week in August, I would be knocking on our door and making sure that we are getting that done as quickly as possible, because we want that support in place from day one.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I think that echoes a lot of the work that I've done recently, working with various disability or wellbeing managers in the universities. And one of the biggest barriers and challenges they've said is that students who haven't applied on time and subsequently haven't received the DSA, and like you said, can just having the support that the DSA can provide can make things so much easier. I'm just having a quick look. Nothing else has come through in the chat. I just wondered, I don't know whether you know it off by heart, Kevin, but whether we could also add the number into the chat, or say the number out loud. I'm sure it's easy for people to Google and find, but is it possible?
We certainly can add it, and I do know it off by heart. Yeah, that's pretty sad, isn't it? So the number is 0300 100 0607.
Say that again. 0300
100 0607. And the other thing that I probably should have mentioned as well as a little bit of best practice is to make use of the disability officers at the universities. We deal regularly with them. They are a really good resource. They can get things back on track if things go awry. They probably would be a first point of contact naturally anyway, but you know, they are experts at what they do. So if you are concerned about your student finance, you might want to speak to them first or give us a ring. There is support either way.
Yeah, thank you ever so much for that. It's quite an interesting field actually in the work that we've been doing with the SEND Progression Partnership, because there's some confusion with terminology between schools, colleges and universities. So I've worked with some parents and practitioners who have said, but the support isn't available, there isn't a SENCO at university. And so again, the terminology of disability advisors or wellbeing teams, just that the support is very much there, and you will be able to, like Kevin said, please do contact those teams. It's a really important decision to make sure as well that you get the right feel, and you know that the team will be able to support you and your needs when you get to university. Okay, one last quick check just to make sure there's no extra questions that have come in. Certainly from my perspective, that was really useful, and thank you, Kevin, for being here today. We really do appreciate you giving up your time. We hope you've enjoyed that, all the attendees that have been watching, and this webinar, as I said, has been recorded and will be shared again for you to watch again if you need to, and stored again on the KMPF website. So I suppose that is all that's left for me to do now, is to say thank you very much for attending, and for Kevin again for presenting, and hopefully see you in one of our next webinars soon.
Thank you.